Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for
Right.
attending. Thank you very much for attending today's event. So we will start in the next 3 minutes. We are just waiting for other participants to log in. While we are waiting, if you can hear me, can you please type in yes on the comment section? Just want to make sure that the audio is clear. Thank you. Perfect. All right. I think the audio is clear. So also just to remind everyone, if you have any questions during the discussion, please feel free to type in your questions on the comment section so that I will be able to see your questions. So we'll start in the next 3 minutes. Let's allow other participants to log in. Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for responding. All right, for those who just log in right now, we are just waiting for other participants to log in. We will start in 2 minutes. Thank you. Again, thank you so much for attending today's event. For those people who just currently logged in, we will start in a minute. We're just waiting for other participants to log in. Thank you. Before we start, just quick audio check. If you guys can hear me, can you please type in yes on the comment section for those who currently log in? We will start in a minute. Okay, thank you. All right, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so I
Thank
think
you. I
we can
think we'll
start
start,
right
right?
now. Yep.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, everyone. My name is Tristan Evans. I'm from the International Trade Council. Thank you for joining us today. I'd like to welcome Deputy Ministers of Economy of Ukraine, Mr. Taras Kachka and Alexander Griban, and our co-host for this event, Estonia's ambassador to the United Nations, having just led Estonia's now completed tenure on the UN Security Council, His Excellency Sven Jurgenson. Welcome as well to the many distinguished guests in the audience today. We're honored to be hosting many leaders from governments around the world, including the United States, United Kingdom, EU Parliament, and others. We're very lucky to have with us today representatives from the Ukrainian government so that you, our audience, can hear from them directly what is most needed in the current moment and how we, as an international community, can best support Ukraine and the economic continuity of the country. This is sure to be an interesting session. We ask that everyone who is currently in attendance today to please keep in mind that the deputy ministers are currently in Ukraine and are joining us under the most extreme of conditions. So please bear with us if there are any audio or technical difficulties. To best facilitate the flow of information, we also kindly and respectfully ask everyone to hold their questions to the end or add them to the group chat on the right-hand side of your screen so that we can address them at the end of the session. There will be an opportunity for open questions to the panel at that time. So once again, thank you, Deputies Alexander and Deputy Taras and His Excellency Sven Jurgenson and all of our attendees. With that, I would like to turn the floor over to Ambassador Jurgenson to give us the introduction on the current geopolitical situation of the region.
Thank you, Tristan, and thank you all for participating, especially representatives of Ukraine. And you have all our admiration of what you are doing and what you are going through. I think before I start, I think that before we talk about response, we have to understand what is at stake, what issue is that we are dealing with. And I think I am not exaggerating when I'm saying that we are living right now a 1939 moment. This is a defining moment for the free world and the post-Second World War world order. I think it's also clear that this now is the beginning of the end of Putin and his regime. But the problem is that so was 1939 for Hitler. It was the beginning of the end for Hitler, but we all remember what happened. And if we remember Ronald Reagan calling Soviet Union the evil empire, then if you listen to the speech by Putin on Monday, 21st of February, before he started the aggression against Ukraine, then it's quite obvious that evil is trying to recreate an empire. And it's not USSR that he's trying to recreate, because he made it very clear that USSR was to be blamed of what happened because Lenin created those weird republics, different nations and so on. What he's after is the glory of the Russian Empire, a unitarian state without any autonomy or any nations. Now, even the Secretary General has now several times called what we are witnessing right now as the greatest threat to the United Nations and its charter. And when we remember the end of the First World War, when League of Nations was created with a proposal by President Woodrow Wilson, then it had one aim, and the aim was never again. League of Nations failed when Germany and Russia attacked Poland, and they attacked Finland, and Soviet Union attacked Finland. But before that, there was Anschluss of Austria. Czechoslovakia disappeared, and nothing happened. So all the warning signs were there, but we didn't listen to them. Now, when you look at what is being actually the consolidation around the world, of the free world, then the Finnish president said that the masks have fallen. Well, yes, they have fallen, but we could see behind the masks before that. We saw the apartment buildings bombing in Russia before the Second Chechen War, organized by KGB or FSB, how it was called at that time. I don't make any difference. Then there was a war in Georgia. And as a consequence of no consequence of the war in Georgia, there is an attack on Ukraine in 2014. And very weak consequences after that. Ukraine was forced into the second Minsk agreement. And I think what we are witnessing right now is a direct consequence, again, of no consequence. But so far, Russia has achieved the opposite that it was after. Russia wanted to weaken the West and to strengthen Russia. Right now, the opposite is true. The West is stronger than ever before, and Russia is weaker. And Russia will be even weaker as time passes. But we have to stay united. And I don't only mean European Union and transatlantic relations, but also inside our countries. I think the polarization that we are witnessing in many countries, including the United States, but also in my country, in many European countries, this is not a time for political bickering. There is a war, and we have to understand that that we are all in this war. So the question that I hear very often, who is next? Are the Baltics next? Is Poland next? This is a wrong question, because we are already there. It's just the difference is Ukraine is doing the heavy part. Ukraine is doing the fighting and dying for us. But we are all in it. And again, listening to the speech of Putin, there is no doubt about it. So I would say that there are three stages that we have to look at: short term, medium term, and long term. The short term is we have to and we will win. We have to win militarily, and that's help Ukrainians as much as we can with military means, humanitarian aid, but we will have to win this war. And also, it's part of it is the economic war that is going on. The second stage, medium term, there has to be a fall of dictatorship, this evil regime, the Putin regime in Moscow. It will take some time, but it will happen. And the third stage, even longer, is what we witnessed after the Second World War with denazification. There has to be a de-Putinization of Russian society. Without that, there will be no end to that. It will happen again. There have been atrocious war crimes being committed every day, and there has to be a new Nuremberg. It was not only Hitler to be blamed. There were hundreds upon hundreds of Germans, actually, who were part of it. And so far as this has not happened, we can not only talk about returning to business as usual, but there should be no business at all before these three stages are over. I have been disappointed, actually, at the beginning when we started talking about sanctions, and the realization what was going on was not clear enough yet, that the sanctions will hurt us. Let's pick and choose the sanctions that will not hurt us. Yes, they will hurt us, and it will last a long time. But let's remember the speech of Winston Churchill in May 1940, where he promised his nation blood, toil, tears, and sweat. But he said, but also that he promised, we will prevail. We are in the same situation. But like I said, at the moment, Ukrainians are doing heroic fighting, and they are doing dying for all of us. So basically, I can say Ukrainians now are giving blood and tears. And the least we can give, and we have to give, and for a long time, is toil and sweat. Yesterday, European Union was discussing new sanctions on Russia. And one of the things we have to make sure, with the unity that we have to be able to assure, is that we will not finance Putin's war machine and war economy. Unfortunately, Hungary blocked the oil embargo and buying oil from Russia, but we will continue doing this because this is the income. This is the income that Putin is relying upon when waging this war. There are still numerous Western companies working in Russia. This has to end. There should be no war profiteering. There has to be what I would call de-Schröderization. We cannot have any more Gerhard Schröders. There is something that after the Second World War, cleansing ourselves was collaboration. And this has to be understood very clearly. Lenin should not be proved right. Lenin said that we are not afraid of capitalists because they are going to sell us the rope that we are going to hang them with. Let's prove Lenin wrong. And now the last thing, when and once this is over, especially the immediate short-term phase of this conflict, there has to be a massive, and I mean massive, help to Ukraine. And it means European Union, United States, we have to have a new Marshall Plan to rebuild Ukraine, because the way Russia is waging this war has not been seen, I think, maybe even in the history of humanity, the evil in it. And the last thing, that means also, I think European Union should be ready already now to say that we are going to start negotiations with Ukraine for their membership in the European Union. The negotiations, in our own experience, will take a long time because there is so much technical stuff and so on going on. But Ukrainians have earned it with their blood. Thank you. Thank you, Tristan.
Thank you very much. I would now like to introduce Mr. Taras Kachka, Deputy Minister of Economy for Ukraine, to give us his overview on the current situation.
Hello, dear friends. Thank you for organizing the event. I think that economy is the suffering most when we are talking about this state of affairs. But I think that the mobilization in our fight against Russia actually has a similarity in mobilization in economy as well. So we are doing our best in terms of supply of foods and essentials to people suffering from aggression of Russia in the big cities and the small villages on all around the borders. And I think that almost months after start of aggression, we actually managed to do so with support of all the world, because the number of support we got is enormous, and we really count and rely on this support. At the same time, we need to rearrange almost all our economy in terms of import and export and supply, and what we can supply to the world, to our western borders, because the two-thirds of our trade took place via our seaports. And we are rearranging almost everything, starting with supply of fuel, because we need to rearrange this market completely for the import through our western border from Europe. And this is one of biggest and the most urgent project, because the volume of diesel, at least, or the only volume of diesel, is about 5 million tons annually, what we imported. And now we are rearranging this market. We are looking for support from all suppliers, and also from governments on rearranging this market. At the same time, I think that we as well advocate for stop trading with Russia. And for European markets, oil and gas is still Russia is one of key trading partners. So therefore, for all of us, for all the region, this market will suffer. The biggest global challenge and global threat is a spread of hunger due to the Russian aggression, because we exported dozens of millions of tons of cereals, so that that the number of African states, they rely on our wheat, in Egypt, in Morocco, in many states in North Africa, Middle East. We used to be key suppliers of wheat, and people really rely in their daily life on our wheat. Now, when ports are blocked, we cannot supply it. And so this is the challenge for all the world. And what we are doing now is that we once again rearrange all the logistics via our western border to the seaports of Romania and Poland, and it will be the biggest challenge, as well as planting season, because in forthcoming weeks we need to ensure that we will have harvest next year. As well, Ukrainian economy suffered from the multi-million movement of people, because we had a really big exodus from big cities which are under threat, under aggression of Russian Federation. So people run from shellings, from destroying their buildings. Now we see that up to 10 million people are really moved their places, either to western part of Ukraine or abroad as well. And we're really grateful for the states who are hosting Ukrainian citizens in these tragic times. So, and what we see is that the globalization actually was used by Russia to finance this war. So we see that Russia actually directly finance its army through the revenues from the commodities it exports, not only fuel, not only oil and gas, but as well wood, and also steel, and also cereals, wheat, and other and sunflower oil. Every commodity is taxed by your Russian government with high export duties, which are the key source for their public finances as a key source of financing the aggression. So that's why we encourage the world to stop trade with Russia, because this is a direct and the most close financing of Russian aggression. So therefore, every dollar spent on Russian oil, every dollar spent on Russian wheat or Russian wood is actually a dollar spent on Russian military or military aggression against Ukraine. So therefore, what we are looking for from the world is that actually trust in Ukraine in terms of our economy and continue cooperation with Ukraine, and that we are doing our best in terms of maintain our links and to actually deliver on all our contracts in terms of supply of our products. We rely on you on rearranging all these legal or economic links on the markets where we need to reinforce these links, like in fuel. And we as well rely on you on cutting Russian access to the sources of finances of their military aggression in terms of sanctions. And our ultimate goal is to stop trade with Russia, that the world would stop trade with Russia. I know that the US government and many other governments already started to implement these sanctions. We see that in the World Trade Organization, Russia already is a pariah state, so that it is excluded from the group of developed nations. Big number of states, including the United States, all G7 states, actually supported the withdrawal of MFN, most favored nation status for Russia. It actually led to the fact that Russia by itself wants to withdraw from World Trade Organization. It means that from trade, from economic point of view, Russia is a pariah state to the same level as for diplomatic and international relations world as well. So therefore, I think that the situation is quite clear. We are doing our best in terms of continue to be a partner to all our partners for trade and economy. We rely on your support, and with your support as well, we can effectively counteract Russian aggression by means of sanctions. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Minister Alexander, do you have anything else? Can you hear us? We've lost your audio, Minister. You might need to log out and log back in. We've lost your audio feed. Okay, while we're sorting that out, we had a question from the audience, Minister Kachka, and that was that my understanding is that the government of Ukraine has issued an export ban for all food. Can you confirm if that's the case?
No, actually, thank you for this question, because you know that we invested a lot in previous years in increasing trust to Ukrainian food and Ukrainian cereals, and we were during previous years we were on the verge of, let's say, of maximum capacity of our export, but we never introduced any limitations. Today we are doing in the same manner. So indeed, due to the disruption of supply chain, we imposed a restriction on number of products like buckwheat so that niche products which are used regionally, but we do not introduce any limitation on wheat, on sunflower oil, on shrots, on corn and soybeans. So all our commodities, all our food commodities are exported freely from Ukraine. The only limitation is logistics for the moment. And by the way, in March, we exported almost 1 million ton of corn. Of course, this is only quarter of what we used to export in this part of season monthly. So we exported usually up to 4 million ton of corn in spring. So, but even in these complicated circumstances, we are managing to continue export. And for today, so that the fresh data, is that we exported 950,000 tons of corn, and as well, of course, we have a major disruption in logistics for sunflower oil. So we exported only 100,000 tons. Yeah, so 100,000 tons of sunflower oil. This is really decimal of what we used to export usually. and this we have really big disruption because we have a lot of stocks of sunflower oil actually stuck and blocked in seaports up to 1 million tons. So this problem is of logistical nature, and we indeed in doing our best, and we encourage everyone to invest in reinstallment of proper logistics of our commodities, food commodities, to the world, because we see that this is our responsibility and our obligation to feed the world, because we see that we rely on your support to help our people, and we as well have, let's say, have an obligation, and we are trying to deliver as well an obligation to feed the people who rely on food from Ukraine. So we do. So we are not introducing these limitations. Of course, we see a lot of challenges for planting season, because in forthcoming weeks we need to ensure that the fields are planted with wheat and corn and soybeans as well. And that's why we have very big demand for diesel to Ukraine. And we are working with all our communities, with all our farmers, even in the areas close to front line, to go and to plant their fields with seeds for future harvest in order to continue our export.
What about, thank you. Minister Griban is now with us back again. Can you provide any additional feedback? What is the government's assessment of food self-sufficiency as well?
Well, we can you hear me now?
Yes, we can all hear you.
Yeah, what currently we're facing an issue when we have a shortage of supply for some special, like long storage goods. Let's say like canned meat, fish, packed cereals, pasta. This is something that we're looking for immediate supplies, and we were circulating this request through the network. Thank you for assisting and providing us some offers. We had some issues with modeling this and structuring inside the mechanics inside the country. Who's going to be the importer? Who's going to be the ultimate user? And who's going to be the payer? So we've seemed to sort that all out. Now we have a time constraint. So now we're limited to time because we need to supply everything like latest 31st of March, beginning of April. And what we're doing here now is we're trying to satisfy the immediate needs with 10 million kind of food packs to be distributed in the cities that suffered the most and that are blocked from procurement primarily due to logistics issues. It's not that, and also for the ready-made food supply shortages. For this, we'll be evaluating the offers that we collected so far and see if any amounts are matching these constrained delivery requirements in terms of timing. And if we see that some of them meet the beginning of April, we're going to proceed with those. Once we do this, we see how the system works, and we'll probably be continuing doing this from onwards until we rebuild our own chain of supplies and the whole system for the food procurement in the country. So whoever wishes to send some offers, I saw Tristan that you consolidated the offers. Thank you for this. So we'll be looking through that. But mainly, as Taras said, everything about the food supplies and our export, that our goal is still to remain the country that is feeding, sort of like feeding the world. We feel responsible, and the ultimate needs, besides the packed food of the long-term storage, is, as Taras also mentioned, the diesel. This is something that we need the most at the moment. Fuels, and because of the planting season. I can also touch base a little bit about the sanctions. Because I noticed that we might have representatives of the U.S. Congress and Senate here potentially. So what we're lacking at the moment is not only cutting the trading relations with Russia, but also investing in their debt. We see that companies are still buying Russian bonds, and still payments of the coupons are being made by the Russian borrowers, and even Goldman Sachs is advising their investors to go and their clients to go and invest in Russian papers. This is something that we would really encourage everyone to stop doing this. We are working with the U.S. government to enforcing these sanctions. We're also trying to set up the sanctions for all the Russian PEPs, for the politically exposed persons, so their assets will be blocked. And what we could enjoy where we could enjoy the support of the congressmen, and would potentially be enhancing the already registered bills or registering new bills for the foreclosure of the blocked assets. So this is something that for the forfeiture of these assets, and this is something that we will be using for fueling our funds on the infrastructure and the economy restoration, because we really plan to chase Russia for reparations and to get the compensation of at least something.
We've lost. Oh, you're back. You're back again. Yes, keep going. Sorry. You've reappeared, Alec.
Hello, do you hear me? I think I had
Yes,
some
we hear
connection
you.
problems. Probably my internet
Yes.
not superb here.
Yeah, carry on.
Well, essentially, this is something that I wanted to tell. Let's go for questions, and let's have a live discussion as well.
Okay, so I have a question. On the non-good side, I notice Ukraine has an outsized role in the technology sector in the global economy. So what's needed to support the companies that were operating in the tech sector, BPOs, IT industries in Ukraine? Can you hear me?
Okay, so I will try to say.
Okay.
So that so first of all, we introduced a lot of let's say tech support and organizational support to our IT sector before the start of aggression. And the project of Dia City as a separate legal regime for IT is actually provides us a lot of provides IT companies a lot of opportunities to have really attractive legal environment for continuation of their work. So we see that a lot of offices of big IT companies are reallocated to western part of Ukraine. So that's why we are trying to do our best in terms of ensuring them the, let's say, as safe environment as possible. And we see that the cities like Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk and Chernivtsi and Ternopil are really good places for the continued operation of IT companies. So that's why I think that the key message is that we need to continue and to reinforce the investments and cooperation with Ukrainian IT sector as much as possible, because we definitely see that the potential of Ukrainian IT industry is continue to be strong. And we see that, for example, PayPal finally actually appeared on our market and added Ukraine into market their operations. So this is a really good sign of, let's say, good attention to Ukrainian IT sector. So that's why we encourage everyone globally to invest into Ukrainian IT companies by placing orders, by concluding contracts for supply of services, etc. So that's so that our banking system is fully operational for this, and as well, so that for e-commerce part now with all challenges for our western borders, so that it still operates. So that's why we need a really big encouragement and big trust into our IT sector, which continues to be the one of attractive elements or attractive elements of Ukrainian economy.
Okay, I see we have another question here from the audience. What is an update on the supply and demand imbalances of essential commodities among the Ukrainian people? What do you have surpluses of, and what are you needing immediately?
So that for us, the first days of war actually created one of biggest, let's say, food crisis in Ukraine. So despite the fact that we are exporter of food commodities and continue to be so, we see that all our chain of supply actually were at least damaged, if not ruined. And we invested a lot into, let's say, assembling again all supply chains. And that's why we need so big humanitarian aid and so big support in supply of food to be delivered to communities which are suffering military aggression, so that to the east and south and north as well. So, but we managed to do so with support of retail chains operating in Ukraine, with support of global companies as well, and with support of humanitarian aid provided by governments and non-government organizations and ordinary people. And we still see the demand for this. We still are looking for support. We are still looking for big supply of processed goods, of goods ready for usage, especially in situation of humanitarian crisis. We have multiple of humanitarian crises in cities and communities occupied or under shellings of Russian army. So it continued to be so in forthcoming weeks. So this demand, this need is still on agenda. Of course, we see that as I said, the supply chain is not ruined; it is damaged. But with all the support of all the mobilization and coordination of private operators and humanitarian and government involvement, we managed to ensure that it functions. So now we hope that in forthcoming weeks, with your support, we will ensure that the demand is satisfied. You know that we are now, let's say, trying to coordinate the humanitarian and ensure that we have proper resources. So we are actually collecting and purchasing a lot of canned food, a lot of pasta and other products to ensure that we have proper stocks for to be supplied in short term for the damaged communities. But with help of companies, we manage that shelves of shops are not empty and people have access to food in different kinds. For those who afford this food to be purchased, they have access to the grocery shops. For those who cannot afford it, they have access to humanitarian support provided by government and foreign government and international non-governmental organizations as well.
Maybe I can ask a question to Alexander. Are you seeing the aid arriving in the volumes that you expect currently? And if no, what can we do as a community, international community, to ensure that more aid is actually reaching Ukraine? Alexander, oh, we've lost you. There we are. Your microphone is off. I think he cannot hear me. He's Okay, I will pass the question back to you, Minister Kachka. We're seeing a lot of people raise money for Ukraine, and lots of people say that they're doing humanitarian work for Ukraine. Are you actually seeing the aid arrive?
So I think we need we need a greater mobilization of people around the world. First of all, we're really impressed by the support we have around the globe to Ukraine. But we see that the scale of aggression, the scale of damage is so big that we cannot say that we cannot say that we can do by everything by ourselves. We need more support so that you see that the communication from our president that actually request from all the world, all the partners, support of different kind. On the, let's say, lower level, on technical level, where we operate with Alexander, we actually see that the inflow of aid in terms of food, in terms of pharmaceuticals, in terms of people who actually escape from the war to western part of Ukraine, and all other kind of support is still needed. So we have as well not only the urgent, the immediate needs, but as well the support in rearranging, so that redesigning our economy, because as we mentioned, that one of the biggest challenge for us will be a total redesign of our fuel market, because now we have no other options than to rely to European suppliers. Of course, this is as well additional pressure for European market, but so that this for us, the supply for Poland and Romania from all the world, from the United States, from Middle East, and from any nation, is like one of the most urgent needs. So that's why I think that that's why I think that we need more mobilization, more, let's say, support and fundraising for Ukraine, for the current situation. And of course, we are looking for what we will do after we will win, when we will need to recover our destroyed cities. And now we are working with international organizations and governments on different on the option of Marshall Plan, which will aggregate finances for support to Ukraine. And we actually encourage everyone that the frozen assets of Russian Federation should be used for it, because we believe that Russia should actually be responsible for their violation of international law and their actually violence against Ukraine. And the best way to use the frozen assets is actually to help Ukraine now and in future as well.
Maybe I can pass the question to Ambassador Jurgenson. How are the neighboring countries facilitating this, not just in the short term, but also the long term, as the minister said?
Well, I believe, like I said about the conflict itself, the war, and also the help that Ukraine needs, I think we also have to understand that when we look at the refugee crisis, this is also something that is going to last a long time. Because even when the war is over, so many of the cities, so many of the buildings are completely wiped off the face of the earth. The list that started with Guernica, then we saw Grozny, we saw Aleppo, we saw Dresden. I think Mariupol is in the line, and the question, how long will the line be after the conflict is over? We have to be ready to be there for a long time. And what we have also seen, for example, with Estonian refugees from the Second World War, when they are long enough already in some place, that means their life will be already over there, all the work and friends and so on. So I believe that a lot of these people will also stay where they are. But we have to bear in mind that our societies might win from that, but Ukraine cannot lose all of these people. And I absolutely agree, and that's why I showed the thumb, is that, you know, after the Second World War, there was a question also of reparations. And who has destroyed all those buildings? It's the Russian Federation. And so therefore, I think it's more than legitimate to use all those frozen funds to rebuild Ukraine and to be part of it. And the consolidation around all those issues that has to be growing even stronger. Thanks.
Yes. Okay. So I see actually that there's still lots of companies trading with Russia, Minister Griban. Ron, if you could just pull up the PowerPoint for a second. So the ITC is actually tracking imports and exports from Russia, and we still see that even after the invasion, there are companies buying in the USA and globally goods from Russia and exporting goods to Russia. These are the sort of things that we also need to see, I believe, stopping. If you turn to the next slide, please, Ron. So here's an example. There's still companies as of mid-March last week importing goods from Russia. So ITC has actually provided a solution for this free of charge, and that is that we're trying to work through and identify buyers of Russian exports outside of Russia so that we can find new suppliers of those goods to help cut Russia out from the supply chain. If you can move to the next slide, please, Ron. So you'll see here, there's enormous amount going out of Russia to, in this case, purchases from all around the world. How do you think we can effectively stop that, Minister Griban? If you're there, we keep losing you because your connection is choppy. Alexander? Again? Oh, no, he's back. So we're still seeing these exports, Alexander, to the rest of the world from Russia, and we're trying to stop it. But there seem to be subversions of exports, and companies just aren't holding up their end of the bargain, or some of these countries aren't necessarily holding up their end of the bargain. How can we help strengthen the sanctions policy, and how can we help expand that policy? I mean, what are your views on the things that you need from the international community to stop this? Alexander? We've lost you again.
Okay, so then maybe so that indeed sometimes we have really problems with connection. So
yes.
that's indeed this is a reality in Ukraine.
So
my apologies for this, but this is indeed the problem.
Yes, we understand. So maybe you can, maybe I'll address the question to you.
Yeah. So first of all, I think that we see that the appeal of Russia, so that what they try to do, because what I see now in this as a result of weeks of discussions and deliberations in different forums, that the most, let's say, non-security, most commercial organizations like WTO, like OECD, like different commodity institutions, they actually absolutely vocal in terms of expressing the fact that Russia violates UN Charter rules, basic rules of international law, and it simply nobody cannot actually continue to treat Russia as business as usual. So that's what Russia attempts to do in different discussions, but I never saw any positive results of this. And that's why I think that we live in new reality when business has a responsibility to react to the, let's say, non-economic issues like aggression. So that's why we really appreciate that long list of global companies who actually leave Russian market, because this is like a new reality, new culture of this generation, not to be blind, so that the money, so that the reputation is more important than money and profits. So that's why those companies who believe that the profits are more important than reputation, they lose twice, because first of all, they directly finance the killing and shelling of Ukrainian citizens, and as well, they lose their reputation for many years in future. So that's why I think that the longer companies take a decision to withdraw from Russia, the more damage they introduce. And this is the fiduciary duty of any CEO, not to impose damage to the companies. And those CEO who believe that any nominal losses from the withdrawal from Russian market are less than reputational damage, they are wrong. And I think that it will negatively impact their career and businesses they run. So that's why we believe that from point of view of our appeal to the world and from point of view of new reality of business culture, it is important for those companies who are still active in Russia to move out of Russia as soon as possible, as fast as possible. So that's why I think it is clear, so that our message will continue, and this message will be stronger and stronger for days to come.
Yes.
But as well, we will support this with more sanctions. I hope that will be introduced by the governments, and therefore we have hand-to-hand policy of sanctions and voluntary withdrawal from Russia. And I think that those who are slow in their decisions, they will lose twice. So that this is the message, and that's why we encourage to do so as soon as possible. The sooner you will move out of Russia, the sooner Russia will get out of money to finance the war.
Agreed. So the ITC, to help extend this effort, has been soliciting companies to sign a pledge. We now have over 1,000 companies who've signed a pledge not to do business with Russia while this war of aggression is happening. But furthermore, we've also started collating all of the exporters to Russia and the importers of goods from Russia. So anyone requesting that information of buyers, of sellers of Russian goods, are welcome to contact the International Trade Council. There's also a free platform that they can log into, united4ua.org, where they can access that data for free. So every day we're uploading lists of different countries of buyers and sellers of Russian goods, with the goal that you can identify those companies in your jurisdiction and encourage them to do business elsewhere for our other EDOs and countries that are attending. I have a question for the ambassador as well, perhaps, if he's still with us, and that is that I've seen a lot of Russian companies relocating to other jurisdictions around the world to avoid sanctions currently. What are the neighboring countries doing to try and stop that from happening? Do you know?
Do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Somehow my picture disappeared. I don't know what happened, but I'm still here.
Yep.
But first, you are doing such a good job, printing the names of the companies and so on. I think we have to have a name and shame, and it has to be also in public media. The companies who are still doing business there, who are, I would still call them profiteers. They should feel bad, and I think it's necessary every day to see the list, and those companies reading their own name in the list is very important. The companies relocating, there are two sides to it. One of them is the positive thing is that that the money that should have gone to Russia is not going there anymore. But then again, there is also a possibility of avoiding the sanctions, going behind the corner. And of course, the governments are doing all the analysis all the time. And there's another issue also that is right now up, what to do with a lot of the Russians who used to work for these companies, that some of Western companies that are also located in our countries, the neighboring countries, like IT people and so on, that they can come over and relocate over there. And that's also a double-edged sword, it has to see, it's what I would also say, it's not fair. And it's maybe even wrong, but it's unavoidable. If you look at the Second World War and the aftermath, even though not all Russians are to be blamed, but it's unavoidable that there will be bad feelings like it was against the Germans after the Second World War. You can't say that all the Germans are to be blamed, but so what? The Russians have to agree with that they have to understand that they will have a different kind of a view. One of the things, for example, that Estonia has done, we have banned now Russian and Belarusian students in Estonian universities, entering universities. It might also be interpreted, these would be the good guys, but and also spreading the Western values to them, the young people and so on. But what our services have made clear, and there was just an article today in one of the newspapers, is that actually a lot of those Russians coming to Estonian universities are doing their own soft measures and propaganda among other students rather than learn from the Western values. So there are, of course, innocent victims also to that, but this is unavoidable, and the Russians have to understand this. Thank you.
See, okay. So do we have any other questions from our audience? I've been taking over a lot of question time. So I see lots of people have shared your view that we need to name and shame these companies. And as I mentioned, the ITC has free lists of those companies. Every day we're producing other lists. So we're doing an analysis country by country of all of the importers and exporters of goods from and to Russia now. So every day, 1 or 2 countries are uploaded. The data is available for free in united4ua.org. You can just create an account and log in. So we have a question. Can you speak to the government liquidity and solvency? Are there any immediate bond payments that need to be rolled over soon?
I think that this is one of this biggest challenge, our macro financial stability, because of course the economy will shrink this year will shrink for obvious reasons. The question is the scale. Of course, it's too early to say the scale, but there are forecasts that the economy can shrink by even by 1/3 this year. So that's why I think that that's why we will rely on support of IMF and other partners in finance and in their support to our public finances. So and the scale of this support is yet to be defined. So for the moment, we already got support from IMF and World Bank and some governments like Italian government who provided grant to Ukraine. But without support of our partners, I think it will be difficult to maintain the stability of public finances. But at the same time, we will continue to be a trusted partner to all our partners. So we need to. So we have a plan to deliver on all our commitments and obligations in this. But it will depend on the let's say the quality of our cooperation with our partners. So this cooperation is developing. Of course, we believe that the easiest way is to actually open an opportunity for us or to use the frozen assets of Russian Federation by the government whom we address our request for financial support to Ukraine, at least part of it because we spent money to fight against Russia, who caused aggression, who actually ruined us. So that's why it will be absolutely natural to finance our defense by the Russian money, the frozen Russian money, because this is I think that the best punishment, the best responsibility for Russia. But of course, this issue is complicated and it's still negotiated. This plea, this appeal is actually exists on the agenda. But in any case, we really rely on support of our partners also in terms of financial stability.
Okay, I have another unrelated question. What is the current logistics situation if we need to ship food and supplies to Ukraine? How do we get them through? What ports are still open and what's still available for deliveries? I've lost you. Please.
I was on mute. I was muted, and I've been asking you to repeat because I.
All right. So what's the current logistics situation? If companies need to ship products to Ukraine, how do they get them to Ukraine at the moment?
Yeah, as I said, that this is the biggest challenge because the 2/3 of our trade was done via seaports, which are now blocked by Russian military ships. So that's why the only accessible direction is a western border of Ukraine via Poland or Romania or Hungary or Slovakia. And that's why the seaports of Poland and Romania are as well the nearest ports for shipments of goods to Ukraine. So, and we are doing our best in terms of opening this border and in terms of increasing the capacity for capacity for shipments for inflow and outflow of products. But the western border is the only safe border for the moment.
Right. Another question from our audience, which is, what is the policy of the governments of states that are actually supporting businesses in Russia? For example, France with Renault that has started their factories in Moscow, etc.
Yeah, I think that, as I said, that for Renault it will be the second mistake in their history because they have unpleasant history during World War II, and now it's just like history repeating. But I think the damage will be let's say times more than in previous decades. I think that of course, so that the nationality of companies is no big deal because the biggest problem is that they continue deliberate, so that they intentionally decide to continue operation in Russia, and I think that this is the worst choice they can do because as I said, that after all they now the logical link between economic activity in Ukraine and financing war against Russian war against Ukraine, Russian army, is so clear that people cannot avoid. As you remember, that some French companies actually were sued by already sued due to their activity in territories controlled by Daesh, and I think that these similarities are so clear that I think that there is a big risk that it will be not only reputational damage but legal damage as well for those companies. So that's why I think that this is a big story where the message is as clear as possible, and all the world is actually asking and requesting for these companies to reconsider their decision and to stop operating in Russia because of the damage they're doing to everyone.
Okay, I agreed. I think we have one other question, which is, if Russian ships begin to bombard Odessa, what options does the West or NATO really have, do you think? Oh, your audio is off.
So first of all, it used to be a plan of Russia, so everyone is prepared for defense in Odessa from shelling, from attack, from the dissenting people. So that's why we are ready to defend Odessa. But it's not only a case of Odessa, but other cities as well, because you know that the rockets, Russian rockets, launch from the plains above Black Sea to Lviv and Ivano-Frankivsk and Rivne and Lutsk, the cities close to the border of to Poland, so that the appeal to close the sky for Russian rockets and for Russian airplanes is as urgent as it was in previous days. So that's why this is the appeal for NATO states, that this is what we really wait, what we count, and what we actually request. And this will be the most efficient tool to save the lives, the cities, and the culture of this region as well.
Yes. Okay. Ron, if you're there, would you mind pulling up that PowerPoint again? Ron, have we lost you as well? Our technical colleague in the background. So we had a few people question which is the best way to access trade data for companies that are buying goods from Russia to encourage them to cease doing that and selling goods to Russia. The free platform is available here, the website link, United for UA. So if anyone logs into there, as I mentioned, every day the International Trade Council is trying to upload more and more data. We're doing an analysis on countries day by day. There's already US data in there. There's already Singapore, Hong Kong, Malta, and a few other countries, and we'll be carrying that on. So we still have, and we will be proceeding to update the countries that we also already have in there as we get the data coming through. So there is still quite a large number of companies doing business with Russia, unfortunately. There's also a few people asked about the pledge, which is how they can encourage their constituents to stop trading with Russia. We've got a link to the ITC's pledge page here, which is unitedforua.org/pledge. That will, there's more than 1,000 companies who've signed that pledge not to do any business with Russia as well. We understand, of course, that Russian citizens don't always represent Russia. There are many good citizens and many good businesses there, but we need to place pressure on the regime and stop funding the regime until they end this war. Does anyone else have any other questions? I think our audience has no further questions and we've run out of our allotted time. So perhaps if anyone has any closing comments, Ambassador, maybe I could start with you.
Yes, I can. Not really a closing comment, but maybe just one personal story to demonstrate the resilience and patriotism and dedication to freedom of Ukrainians. And it is my son, who lives in London, who actually has a birthday today. He's 25. He bought an apartment in Tallinn in Estonia, and in a house that is being built. And last week, we received an email that the deadline for construction is postponed, and they don't know when it will be ready, because there are very many Ukrainian construction workers in Estonia. And it's such a moving thing to think that they have a nice life, a good income, because in Estonia we have a law that for foreign workers or employees, you have to pay the same, at least the average salary in Estonia. So they are safe, they have a good income, and they decide to abandon this, to go back to Ukraine, to fight for freedom and maybe to die. So Slava Ukraini.
Thank you. Yes, I've also read many similar stories as well in the Ukraine expat forum. So, and any last words from you, Deputy Minister Kachka?
I hope that, first of all, we will have more opportunities to discuss the agenda on how to develop trade with Ukraine. So this is the definite interest of mine. So that to work on the further expanding of trade, because trade is the best way to invest into peaceful and wealthy life. So that's why I think that we are really optimistic about future, but we need your support now, and support in very important and really the issues that are matters of life and death. And that's why any support, not only the support in security dimension, but support as well with food staff, with medical staff, with human support and medical support as well to the people, so is so important today. And people of Ukraine are really grateful for all this support from everyone from the world. So thank you very much, and we really rely on this support and the cooperation in forthcoming days. It will be so important for all of us. Otherwise, as you see, that I think that the presentations from Ukrainians are very similar now, because we are consolidated and we are so clear about our demands and about our requests and about our, let's say, belief that we can be a trusted partner for you for many years. And this is not only an appeal for one-time support. This is all we are asking now is a good fundament of good investments into the really close and trustful partnerships for tomorrow and for many years for the future. So thank you. My apologies that I'm not unique in my rhetoric. So it's, as I said, that usually we are quite conscious about what we are asking for and what we can offer to the world as well. So thank you.
Yes, no problems. And thank you very much for your time. It's been exceptionally valuable for everyone. We'll definitely try to keep the conversation going with everyone. Again, if anyone has any information that they would like to share, we've built a standalone platform to share the information with the government of Ukraine. It's united4ua.org. They can log in, they can make an account there, they can share offers of supplies, of donations, of requests, and just network with one another as well. And we're posting the companies to name and shame who are still doing business with Ukraine, and also with Russia, and also the opportunities for businesses to supply companies that were previously buying from Russia. So there is still opportunities available to cut Russia out of the supply chain that are represented there as well. So, and we will carry on this discussion with everyone over the coming weeks, and hopefully we'll pray for a fast end to this war as well. So thank you everyone for joining us today. We appreciate it. And thank you also, Ambassador, for your time as well. It's been greatly
Thank you
helpful.
all. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.